Hello, everybody. We are here again. We are at week 4, and I'm so excited to dive into this week because guess what? I know I sound like a broken record and that I'm going to keep saying it, and you're probably sitting there like, she says that every week, every chapter. But this chapter on week 4 on symptoms and coping mechanisms is probably one of the most vital chapters. And again, I promise you would say, you keep saying that, but I think every chapter is so important once we reach it because, again, remember, we're peeling back layers. We are removing layers. We're going layer by layer. And let me be honest with you, this chapter on symptoms and coping mechanisms, the reason I feel like it's so important right now in this process, probably the most important, is because if you've gone through chapter 1, you know, what is insecurity? Chapter 2, circumstantial insecurity. Chapter 3, characteristic insecurity. By now, you've started to ask yourself, or you should have asked yourself, am I insecure? Or do I have any insecurities? And if you've asked yourself that question and have genuinely searched, you've probably already found some and what they are and what their source are. But this chapter, if there's any question and you're not sure, oh, no. You're going to leave this chapter knowing like, man, like it's almost like a light bulb comes on, or it feels very, very invasive. If you are still in denial, it can feel like, man, you know, you're just kind of diving in and accusing me of things. And like I said, it can feel very exposing, but I want to encourage you to remember this is private. Any self-work that we do and any time we open ourselves up to change, it is a very private thing that you're discovering, and you're free to see your flaws and your issues, and you're free to see them on your own and deal with them in your way. Process by process, time by time, as God helps you and leads you. And so, you know, if there's any chapter that you've read that's probably sizzled you and burnt you a little bit, it's this one. And let me tell you, this wasn't a comfortable thing to write because as I was writing, I was digging into my own patterns of behavior at times of my life where I just really was clueless about who I was. So anything that I'm writing is not me doing like this. It's me doing like this. Looking within and remembering and connecting with the former person who just really didn't know who she was and used a lot of different things to try to figure it out. And so rest easy. Again, rest easy. Let the discomfort come in and help you search. And for those of you, I know that there are people that watch the videos and they kind of subscribe to what we're doing here and they haven't read the book. You need to get the book so that it can bring all of it together. Just watching the videos, I'm doing a lot of referencing from the book. And when you have the book, it really helps you. And so I encourage you, if you don't have the book, you can go to Amazon, Kindle, or ShauneeBrannan.com to get it. But again, have you asked yourself, am I insecure? If you haven't, do it in this moment. Say, self, are you insecure? And self says, I don't know. Or it says, why, yes. Or no. Either way, ask yourself right now, am I insecure? So we talked in this chapter about symptoms and coping mechanisms. And one of the points here is symptoms are indications of the presence of a condition that is good or bad. They work as signs or indicators that help us to point to their origin. When we're talking about symptoms, you notice whenever you go to the doctor and you're kind of having a cold or something else, they start to ask you certain questions to narrow in on what the issue is. If you go in there and you say, you know, I have this lump in my breast, they may figure that this can be a sign of breast cancer. So they start to ask you other questions about the lump. Is it hard? Is it tender? Does it hurt to touch? Like, if you go in with a cold, they ask you, are your sinuses draining? Is there pain? Because they're looking for the presence of an infection. Symptoms point to not only the problem, but what the problem is. It helps you to identify what the problem is. And so when we're talking about symptoms, symptoms are just an indicator of the presence of something good or bad. And so we talk about symptoms because they help us to see what we're looking for and what we're looking at. Anything that causes us to live or function outside of a healthy thought process is a foreign abnormality. Thus, it is an illness that causes deficiencies. When we're talking about symptoms pointing to something, we're looking for the symptom to point to an illness that causes us to see where we're deficient in. Whenever we have sickness in our body or things in our body or in our life that are outside of the order or the structure that God designed for us to live in, they cause deficiencies. The problems come in and they never really give, they take. Even if they give, they're giving something abnormal that takes something that's normal, that is needed. And so these symptoms are saying, this is the problem. And because this is the problem, you're now deficient in this area, you're deficient in that area. And most of us, even if we don't really know the specific area that we're deficient in, we're able to feel the difference of something that's not normal. You know, me and my husband, let me tell you, me and my husband were on a trip last year in St. Kitts, and I'm in the gym, and I look in the mirror, like I feel my bottom tooth tingling, and I'm like, what's going on? I look in the mirror, and I noticed that one of my bottom teeth has literally shifted. Now, I've never had braces, never had anything like that, just kind of been blessed to have a decent set of teeth outside of getting braces. And so I look and see like my teeth shifting, and I'm thinking, what did I do? You know, did I eat something? Did I just bump up again? Like, how does this happen? Like, it was a considerable overlap on teeth that used to be straight. And so I said, oh my God, the minute I get back to Michigan, I am going to make an appointment. And so I did. I went and saw them like 2 days later, and I'm in there talking to the dentist, and I'm like, she's telling me all this stuff. We're going to take x-rays. And I'm just sitting there pretty much saying, so how are we going to fix it? And she's like, you know, Mrs. Brannan, we're going to take x-rays and we're going to figure out what you're deficient in. I'm like, no. You don't understand. How are we going to fix it? See, in my mind, it was just like, put it back. Can you just scoot it back over? Can you like shift it back over? Or do I just need like one little brace down here that'll just yank it all back in? And she's like, no, see, you don't understand. It doesn't just work that way. We need to figure out why the problem is the problem. We need to figure out why teeth that have always been straight and never had any issues for 38 years all of a sudden decide to shift. She says something in your body is deficient and is weakening your teeth structure so that now they're shifting. This typically happens to people as they get older. I said, hold on, boo-boo. I'm not old. Let's clear that up right now. Mother, not old. Okay, I'm only 38. And she's like, this happens to people as they get older. She keeps saying something about getting older. How dare her with her rude self. But long story short, she wasn't interested in putting braces on my teeth, shifting anything back, getting out any hammers or chisels or tools and just scooting it back. She, as the doctor was saying, we need to get to the root of the issue. So she put me on some different vitamins and some other things that will strengthen my teeth structure, because for her to just go in and move teeth back does nothing to fix the problem. It'll be there still. And so I say all of that to say, a lot of us, what we do when we realize that there's a problem, when we're deficient in certain areas of our life, if we're not getting enough love, enough attention, enough money, enough recognition, instead of us going to the source of why we feel like we're not getting enough, we add to ourselves. We start adding to the areas that we feel like we're deficient. If we feel like we're not getting enough love and attention, we go find a mate. Let me tell you something. That is one of the worst things that you can do if you're someone needy who does not love yourself, to figure that you need to go get somebody else to do it. You will make that person a god. You will make that person the source of everything, and they will hold more power over you than anyone should have. You always go and add to yourself from a place of wholeness. You accept a new job because you're content and whole with the one that you have. Not in the sense of, well, I need to go get that so I can feel better and be better. It's possible to feel better and be better without adding anything to yourself other than contentment and love and peace that comes from God. Everything that we seek and we search out should come from a place of wholeness, a place of rest, a place of knowing how he thinks and feels about us. And so the common thing that people with insecurity do, because we're deficient in our view of ourselves, our view of God, our view of our worth and our value, we tend to go and look for it in other places. And so we add lots of different things. I talk about it in the book, how I added so many different things for so long. Gosh, you got to read it. Just read it again. But I was pulling from multiple places. If I thought I was ugly, I go buy some more hair. If I thought I was fat, I go get some diet pills. If I thought that nobody liked me or wanted me, I made myself look a certain way. Like I just worked so hard to love myself. And I was pulling for acceptance from all of these places. But it doesn't matter who accepts you externally, who praises you, who thinks the best of you. People will say you're the greatest today and the worst tomorrow. If you are pulling your sense of worth from anything externally because of what's deficient internally, it will not last and it will not complete it. The thing about supplements, and I said this, supplements are rarely a one-time thing, but often require constant attention, effort, and maintenance. Supplements, we all do it. We take vitamins, especially the older we get. We take calcium, vitamin D. We take echinacea to keep us from getting sick because our immune system is a little shot. We all take things to add to our body to bring it up to the level that it should naturally be at, especially with our food lacking all the nutrients and vitamins that it should have in this day and time. Most people are supplementing. But guess what? The supplements have to be taken daily. It's not like, oh, well, you just take it Monday or the first Wednesday of every month and you don't have to do it again. It's a constant process of taking and adding and adding and adding to bring you up to wholeness. And so when you are supplementing, because of insecurities and how you feel about yourself, it is the most exhausting, tiring thing to do because it's constant, especially if people are involved with this, especially if people are the ones that you're constantly looking at and needing something from to feel a sense of worth and a sense of value. They have you like a puppet on a string and a yo-yo. It's absolutely exhausting. And so I say all of that to say, what are you supplementing? What are you adding to yourself? What are you adding to your life in an effort to feel peace and wholeness about yourself? And ask yourself, if I don't have him or her, if I don't have this or that, if I'm no longer doctor or teacher or pastor, if I'm no longer wife or husband or any of those things, does it change the way that I feel about myself? Not about my life, but about myself. Does it take away some worth or value in my opinion of me? If the answer is yes, it's a supplement. It is a supplement. The thing about supplements, another point, is that they become a fertilizer that feed our insecurities as opposed to curing them. We think that we're taking all these things and adding to ourselves because it's providing a cure. It's dealing with the issue. It's removing the issue. But the truth of the matter is it becomes like a fertilizer that feeds them because you become dependent on it in a way that is so unhealthy. You become dependent on it in the sense that you feel as though you can't live without it. And again, I ask the question, if you're not this or that, and if you don't have this or that, does it change the way that you see yourself? If it does, it is a supplement that has become a fertilizer. It populates your insecurity. It makes it grow. It strengthens it. It makes it stronger than it was before you started supplementing, because guess what happens? When you supplement, it actually deceives you into believing that there's not a problem. And if you know that there's still a problem and that you're choosing to supplement, it adds to you depression and misery because you know that this is something artificial. And anything that's artificial does not last. It is only false. It gives the sense of being a false help. It is not something that's helping. It's almost like when you have a broken rib and you decide to get on Oxycontin or some other strong pain medication. For a minute, it dulls your senses where you don't feel the pain, and you start to operate as if you don't have a broken rib. Then when it wears off, the pain is twice as strong because not only have you further damaged the broken rib, but you've possibly damaged other things. This is what happens with supplementing. It leads you to believe that there's not a problem, and then when it wears off, he or she leaves, or you lose this or that, now the pain is even worse. It's even more considerable. And so supplements are extremely dangerous. I want to read to you some of the symptoms of insecurity: fear, anxiety, emotional unrest, envy, jealousy, constant comparison, cynicism, distrust, manipulation, control, pride, vanity and snobbery, bragging and habitual praise, arrogance, defensiveness, offensiveness, self-loathing, self-righteousness, selfishness, anger, stubbornness, rebellion, lying, and aggression. Just going to pause for a second because you may be feeling some type of way. We're just going to take a little sip. Give you a second to read my cup. Oh, good cup. Pray without ceasing. Go ahead and pray right now. Without ceasing. Go on ahead and pray for a second, because you may be saying, whoa, either I see myself or I see someone else. And it can be like, all of those things come from insecurity, yes. Because the thing is, we tend to think it's something else. When all of these things surface, when someone is lying to us, what do we say? They're just a liar. When someone is defensive, oh, they're so defensive, I can't stand them. You know, we focus on the fruit instead of he or she is lying because they're insecure and they have an inability to accept truth. Truth makes them insecure. All of these things are the result of insecurity. And so I want you to ask yourself, in the list of insecurity symptoms, how many resonate as a part of your personality, whether currently or in the past? It's okay to scratch them off or circle them and say, this used to be me, or this is me, and I need to work on it. It's perfectly normal. Now, we're going to go into the personality traits and the coping mechanisms. Because let me tell you, I've had people text me, I've had people call me, I've had people messenger me on Facebook, and they say, okay, I don't like you anymore. Leave it. Because when you start to read these, the description hits home if there's something there. We talk about the control freak, the introvert. I want to settle on the introvert real quick. A lot of people will say I'm introvert, or, you know, they pride themselves on being introvert, or they'll talk about another person as introvert. But a lot of people that are introverts, there are some people that are naturally introvert. I am the perfect combination of the introvert extrovert. I'm very extrovert right now doing this, but I prefer alone time. Like, I do a lot alone. I do shopping alone and working out alone. It's because my mind is very analytical. I think a lot, and I like to come down and take time to just think. And sometimes that requires really being alone. Like right now, you may not hear her, but my 2.5-year-old is in the crib and they're hollering for mama. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her other than she's spoiled. Okay, but this is 24/7 as a mom. I work a full-time job. I help to run a church. I'm building a ministry, doing a book club, working full-time. And sometimes you just retreat into introvert behavior where you don't want to be bothered. Not because you don't like people or love people, but it becomes a time for all of this to come together and settle down. Some people are naturally introvert, but there's introvert behavior that's the result of insecurity. I suffered with it, where it was easier for me to be alone than to have to be around people and worry about how I was going to be perceived, accepted, rejected. I would leave from different gatherings and rehearse different things that happened and how I was received, and did I seem weird, and did I seem uncomfortable? Listen, I still to this day can be just a little bit anxious, especially with men, like when they're flirting and they're in your personal space. Really, when anybody's in your personal space, like the people at the grocery store that are like, look, y'all, like right here, within inches, or the people that talk like right here on your nose. Oh, 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 oh. They really are the thorn in the flesh that Paul talked about for me. Like when they're this close and I'm like, I can see you and hear you if you stand over there. Really, I could. Like the people that get really in your personal space, or they're like the men that are flirting, saying things to you. Like I always find a way to say the worst thing, like the most inappropriate thing. And I always feel bad, or I say something weird that makes absolutely no sense because I just feel awkward. Like I feel awkward still to this day. Well, sometimes it's your insecurity, sometimes it's your barriers being crossed, but sometimes introverts, the way that they deal with it is to withdraw. It's easier for them to be alone in their own war, in their own battle. And the reality is, because they haven't really fully accepted themselves, they're not really sure that you will. They're not really sure that you'll like them. They've convinced themselves that they're weird or they're not likable. And so they pull away before you remove them. Okay? Hear me on that. People that are competitive, the comparer, the narcissist who is proud and arrogant, the people pleaser, the overachiever, the constant comic, the hater, gossip, and fault finder, the self-righteous, the vain and materialistic, the deceitful and the liar, the violent and the tough guy, the racist and prejudice are all personality traits of insecurity. And I give long descriptions in the book. I don't really want to go into all of the descriptions now for the sake of time. But again, these personalities are a combination of symptoms that comprise a characteristic insecurity. They form a character, they form a person, they form who you are. You know, when we're talking about proud and arrogant, I really want to highlight that one outside of the introvert, because a lot of people tend to think that when a person is proud and arrogant, that they're just proud and arrogant. They'll say things like, she's so proud and stuck up and arrogant, but they don't realize it takes an insecure person to be proud. It takes an insecure person to be arrogant. Someone that's truly secure, that has accomplished anything small or anything great, are humbled by their achievements, because they know they're not just a combination of qualities that they've had, but they're things that God has invested in them that's made it possible for them to achieve anything. Or they recognize the help and the value that other people bring to their life, and they don't allow any achievements to go to their head. Okay? And so please get the book, read it again. But I want to ask you, if you discovered yourself in any of these personality traits, and if it made you uncomfortable, I think that's the question now, is did it make you uncomfortable? And if it made you uncomfortable, why? Why does truth make you uncomfortable? Why does discovering that you may have some issues or some personality traits that need help, why does it make you uncomfortable? Rest easy. Listen, you have time and you have opportunity to work on these things and to figure them out. And don't run from process. Don't say, I see it, but it's not really an issue. And I'd rather supplement and add to myself and just, continue doing what I'm doing to feel better. I don't mind doing it constantly. I don't mind doing it daily. Listen, it does nothing to remove your deficiencies. And before you know it, they will lead you down a path where supplementing is no longer an option, where it's not a matter of adding to yourself anymore. It requires way more work and overhaul for where you're at. So I encourage you, stay on the process, reflect on your journal moments. Listen, next week we'll be back with a little special guest. My husband, he'll be here as the male counterpart and the male representative, talking about the chapter Man versus Woman. So I just want to encourage you, tune in, share it with somebody. Again, this is so fun. I'm honored to be doing this with you, and I love you guys. All right, see you later. Come on, come on.